Oh, so you are down to just 3. Well, you still have enough to do.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, Groveland, and we're going to call the meeting to order, the February 2nd, 2026 Select Board meeting, 6 PM. And we're going to roll call into executive session in accordance with MGL 30A 21A, Section 3, to discuss strategy with respect to pending litigation, specifically Michael Lawless versus the Town of Groveland and Robert Valentine, civil action number 24-CV-12605-GAO, and also in accordance with MGL C30A, Section 21A, Chapter 6, to discuss the value or exchange of real property in public discussion, which may have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the town related to 292 Main Street and related to potential settlement related to the possible litigation regarding 292 Main Street. Kathy?
I'm going to recuse myself for possible personal conflict, right?
Becky?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Jason, yes. Steve? Yes. 3 present, 1 absent, and 1 recusal.
Yep,
So we return after for public session.
okay. And I already told Jason, just roll it. If the next thing is just a quick and easy one, I don't have to come in for the second.
We need the Zoom put back onto the TV out in here.
Yes, we can't see ourselves.
Recording in progress.
There we go.
There we go. Now we're
Thank you.
up and flying.
All right, welcome back. If you will, please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
These packets are enormous, ginormous.
Yeah, I think that's because of we got a lot of correspondence.
Yes, it was the correspondence that.
I think the first thing we're going to be going over is a review of the memo from the highway superintendent regarding snow removal activities,
Yes,
which I can still see them out there today, still removing snow. And I see updates from other towns and cities that they're still removing snow there as well.
Right, right.
That was a pretty big storm that we had. So,
Did you want to read the memo?
I think you should.
Read
There's
it.
so much.
Do you want me to
Becky's
read
good
it?
at reading.
read it.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
I'll give you a break.
You're a good reader.
I love reading out loud. I always volunteered for it. Okay, so this is from Arthur Marcos. So according to the National Weather Service, the town received 23.5 inches of snow between Sunday, January 25th, and Monday, January 26th, 2026. The winter storm was part of a storm system that had a major impact across eastern United States. The Highway Department's response consisted of snow removal operations using both in-kind staff and equipment, as well as private contractors to plow the 100 miles of roads, 7.5 miles of sidewalk, 7 acres of parking lots, and 2 miles of rail trail. The town deployed its staff and equipment on Sunday at 10:30 a.m. and worked until Monday at 10 p.m., and its private contractors on Sunday at 2 p.m. and worked until 7 a.m. on Monday. Over the duration of the 2-day storm, the Highway Department's operational staff each worked for approximately 32 hours, using the town's 6 plow trucks, and each private contractor worked approximately 17 hours using their own equipment, totaling 10 plow trucks. The initial storm responses focused on keeping roads passable for emergency vehicles during the storm, and post-storm operations focuses on salting and sanding, widening roads, and clearing the sidewalk, rail trails, and parking lots, in which the in-kind staff uses its loaders, skid steers, and sidewalk plows. Please feel free to contact me with any questions. For more information, please refer to the town's recently updated winter operations plan. Very truly yours, Arthur Marcos.
Awesome. I know that you had requested that to be on the agenda, Kathy.
Yes, I did. I just felt like there should be some kind of an overview of, first of all, we do have a small, comparably small highway staff compared to other towns. So they're working around the clock, and they're doing it in a prioritized, planned manner. It's not happenstance. And I'll just remind people that, yeah, it's okay to have a concern. That's not a problem. But we do have a portal on the town website where you can enter your concern. It will go directly to the person, Mr. Marcos, who can actually address it. So rather than asking your friends or your neighbors what they think, I think if you really have what you think is a valid concern on snow removal, a safety issue in particular, please learn to use the town website. And if you find that it's difficult to use, let our town administrator know, and we can look at the situation, try and make it easier. But it should be fairly easy to do, to just hit the button and put your comment or concern or question into the portal, and you will definitely get a response. And most importantly, if you're raising a safety issue, it will get addressed much faster if you go directly to our highway superintendent, Arthur Marcos, because he's the person that can look at the situation and make any necessary adjustments to the snow removal plan. But overall, I was very, very impressed with the snow removal operation. It was a huge storm. It went over a span of days. The schools were closed. They're asking people to stay home, and they did a phenomenal job, I think, given the small staffing that we have. And as you can see, even our contractors worked long hours. So everybody worked long hours, and after a certain amount of time, we do have to give them a break. They have to get some sleep before they can go back out and start widening everything. And overall, I feel like it was a really great effort, and we have a lot of sidewalks now that are getting snow removed on them. We never used to be able to do that before we had the equipment that does that. So this is kind of a new endeavor, the sidewalk snow removal. And if you have concerns or questions, again, address them please to our road superintendent, because he is the person that is critical to looking at your question or concern and determining what can be done for it.
Awesome. Do you have anything to add, Ed?
I do not.
Steve?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, two things. So first of all, I want to extend a thank you to the highway department. I mean, when you read this, over the duration of a 2-day storm, the highway department's operational staff each worked for approximately 32 hours, contractors 17 hours. I don't know, I went out and shoveled maybe 4 times and I was pretty much done with it. So that's a pretty monumental thing that they did, especially given that we haven't had a storm, of that size in probably 3 years, I think. 2022 was probably the last one. And I think I've seen them out there, even continuing this week clearing snow. Today, I know they were on my street with a front loader clearing up more snow. So I just want to thank them, and I think, again, a little bit of patience goes a long way. These storms are difficult at times, and they take time to clean up from. So I appreciate the memo from Arthur, and I appreciate everything the highway department did.
Becky?
I'm just going to echo. I just want to thank everyone for their commitment to keeping our community safe and functioning during this unprecedented winter storm.
Yes, and I definitely want to reiterate that when it says here that each staff member worked for approximately 32 hours, that's 32 hours straight. That's not stopping. And having plowed for the state, it can be very taxing and very difficult. And they definitely did a great job, especially when you look around at some of the other cities and towns. You can see some of the pictures and the roads and how unpassable some of them were for 2 days. And they were on top of it, and they did a great job. So I definitely want to thank them. And with that, we'll move on to the town administrative performance evaluation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I added this to the agenda because I was not sure if this is exactly what the board was looking for. Based upon the feedback I had taken back to the executive coordinator and trying to use Microsoft Forms to fill this out, what's included in your packet is what she was able to put together. So she did mention that it was not without difficulty. I'm not going to lie, I did not have an opportunity to assist her much or offer much assistance, so this was all her doing, but I just wanted to make sure that this was exactly what the board wanted and envisioned before we actually sent it out to all of you to proceed with.
What do you think about it, Becky?
It has all the components in there. I feel terrible that she had a hard time. She should have called me. I'm like the queen of these things.
Well, that was the other thing. If you want, we can send you over what we started, and if you feel as though there's a way to better arrange it or enhance it, or could offer additional feedback, we'd be happy to go back and take another try.
I think I mean, the components are there, you know, you have the rating, you just pick one, all the text boxes are there, so I say just, yeah.
Steve?
Annie's probably had enough.
Yeah, I think it lines up pretty well with what we had in the form that we kind of discussed using, so it looks good to me.
How about you, Ed?
He's frozen.
You're frozen? Kathy?
Well, I like it. I just was kind of going back down, though, when you get to, where is it? Number 17. So I don't recall that we were doing something with that. 17, so are we under, like, we have communication and transparency at 15,
So you're looking
Right,
at
and then we
key
have
strengths,
comments.
Contributions?
and then we have just an open box, and I guess I don't remember there being this category.
I believe in the self-evaluation, those are two things written by Rebecca.
Oh,
It's not on
okay.
here, you just have to go back to the,
Right, but I
Yeah.
thought that would be more of information for her sharing to us. This is what I'm really, and that's how she sets her overall goals for what she wants to, I know in teaching, we have to set our goals, our strengths and weaknesses, so that it can be, the weakness can be something that we can work on and show progress on at the end of the year. That would be the goal. So I thought 17, 18 weren't needed, maybe, because that's part of her, almost her reflective practices. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So, and then you go to 19, it looks, the overall rating, isn't that going to tally, isn't that going to happen automatically, or not? Because that's what we were hoping for, right? Not to have to add these up by hand.
Right.
So, no, I really like,
Okay,
this is like
yeah, I see
so
what
much
you're
better
saying.
than what we had before. And I don't mind the narrative summary, being able to like write, or maybe we could word it differently so you don't feel like you have to write a book report, but I thought it would be nice for members who are so inclined to write a paragraph or something at the end, a reflective practice on our part, you know. But I just thought these two didn't make sense to me.
You're talking
I
about
was trying-
17 and 18?
Yes, and then 19, I thought that was going to happen automatically.
I think 17 and 18 give us an opportunity to express our opinions.
Yeah, and we did have it in there. I just went and found the original form that we discussed at the meeting. So there was a section 2 in there was key strengths and contributions with comments. Section 3 was development opportunities with comments. And then Section 4 was an overall rating. Rebecca, I don't know if you have that original doc and could
Yes.
share it.
So if I could ask Steve, what you're saying is you want the individual members to comment on her reflection in that area.
Correct. I think we can put our own feedback in there. You know, where we feel our key strengths and contributions are, where we feel there might be development opportunities. Now, we may align that, individuals may choose to align that with what was in her self-eval, but I think we may have different opinions or things that we want to address as well in that section.
Well, so the question I'm asking you is, because I think this is very, very vague, and because it's just an open box, a 5-member board can go all over the place, and this would never get added into the overall rating
It's
just-
part of the narrative, though, and it could be used for that final narrative.
Well, I understand that part. I get all that. I'm just trying to say, when you're looking at a board such as ours that meets every other week, is not here during the day, we don't see things as they happen, as they occur. All we have access to are the reports, which are very detailed, and we have the reflection, what I call a reflection of her practices, strengths, contributions, and development opportunities. If these boxes are tied to the document that the town administrator submits, then that should be noted. These shouldn't be open-ended, I don't think.
They were absolutely intended to be open-ended, and I think that's what we approved when we
I,
approved the package.
I did not realize that was what was being approved, so I would disagree with that, because my point again is, we're not here day to day. We don't have the opportunity that a regular supervisor or boss would have to take note of things as it's happening day to day. So as we're going about this, we have our sense of things, our impression of things, but what I'm concerned about is that we went to the digital thing, my understanding was so that as we're doing these documents, they could be totaled up rather easily and rather quickly.
Yeah, you feel like.
I mean,
that's-
you're shrugging, but let me finish.
Sure.
That was what I thought was the goal, and I'm wondering what's changed here from that goal, because there is too much open-ended ability here for whoever is assembling this to choose what they do and don't want to put in it.
Sure, and
And
that's,
then-
but that's the discussion that we had, and that's.
You
what we
interrupted?
approved.
Thank you. I'll stop talking. Chairman, why don't you run this?
Then, would somebody want to fly a motion?
Well, I would approve this except for the 17 and 18, and the fact that the overall rating should be happening automatically. You shouldn't be trying to figure out your overall rating when you've already done all the points up above.
Yeah, again, it's, for me,
And
it's
that-
very subjective, so.
Yeah, well, I think in the narrative, you have the ability to touch on anything else you want. So I guess I just feel like everything else is straightforward. Except the 16 doesn't, oh, no, it does have a rating. So 16 has a rating under 15. And so that 16 is redundant, unless, it's the comments, yes. Okay, so I just think 17, 18 are vastly different.
Yeah.
And then 19 should be happening automatically. Is that going to happen automatically, or are you going to leave it up to each individual member to decide, based on their review of their form, what they add up to? That's not how we were doing it in the past. That's not what we were doing. And I kind of
No,
feel
'cause
like
we had
that's not
numbers
fair.
assigned to everything, and the person that tallied it up is the one that added it all up.
Right, but you had to just use what people had given you. You couldn't just say, oh, well, they've given her an overall rating, so I'll take that. We took each category. And the only thing that was kind of subjective was the comments, which are fine. They give the chair something to pull on when they're writing the summary. I just thought that we should make this, the first time through, as easily understood by every single member on the board as it could be. And what I'm questioning is, I don't quite understand why 17, 18 are so different from the other categories, why they're not just, why don't you just put the little rating thing under them and then the box for comments? If that's, except key strengths and contributions, you're not supposed to rate them. So I'm kind of at a loss there.
That's okay, I'm not. I think it's a good idea, because, like I said.
You think it'll work?
I think it gives each individual member an opportunity to take
Right.
into consideration what they feel, based
Okay.
on the meetings that we have and the interactions that we have with Rebecca. And I think that's important for us to be able to express that.
Okay.
Because then we can discuss it all after it's put together, and we can make a determination on whether or not those are things that could either be focused on or praised for in terms of performance.
Good, can I ask you this, Jason? Do you think that the section 4, are you going to ask each of us to just check a box there? Or are you going to try and summarize,
Section 4.
I mean, that's section 19, it says section 4, it's 19, section 4, overall rating.
Ah,
Is that going to be like an automatic digital tally of the things from above? Or is that going to be another impression that you put down as to what you overall
I
think?
think we'll leave it as an impression, and then we'll just compare it to what they actually checked off in all the other boxes.
Okay,
See
okay,
how it compares. And then moving forward, we can make that decision, I think. Because I think it would be interesting just.
that I
to
can
see.
accept. I can understand that. That makes sense to me. If we-
Like, I do understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
If they check exemplary here, here, and here, and then all of a sudden the development needs in 19, it doesn't make sense. So, yeah, I understand that, but I'd like to see how that plays out.
right, so
And
then,
ultimately, it should be a tally of everything, and it should match.
okay. So do we think then that the way this is going to work is that like, what you'll get is you'll get everybody's individual sheet, right? In like a PDF form or something, right? And then you'll get a summary sheet that would take everybody's things under each of these categories that I'm looking at and tell you how many people rated it exemplary, effective, and development needed. For each category, you'll see that. Do you think,
You can export to
Yeah,
Excel.
it'll be
is that what it'll do? Okay, okay, that's what I'm
It'll be
asking.
easier to manipulate.
Yeah, it'll be a summary, they'll tally that all up, and also go over some of the development opportunities and key strengths that may have been mentioned, and contributions, just in a summary form that we can further discuss later on.
Okay, and so when we're looking for those bottom things with the open boxes, we should go back to the document that town administrator submitted to us.
You can do that, or you can add or change and do things
Okay.
that you feel might be different.
And then-
I understand that we don't necessarily interact on a daily basis with Rebecca, but it is
Correct.
still our responsibility to hire and.
Oh, yes,
to-
no, I understand that.
It's something that we should have a good grasp on.
Right, I just, we'll see, I mean, obviously, we'll see how it plays out, is what I'm saying, as long as we all say that about this document, then fine, because that would be my concern, if there's such a disparity in what is occurring in section 17 and 18, that it's almost nonsensical, then you would have to say, okay,
Well, if it is, then
Yeah.
obviously there's a problem.
yeah,
Whether it's a disconnect with us or the town
Right.
administrator, it's something we have to look at and evaluate and make a decision as a group.
okay, that's fair enough. All right, so I'll make a motion to accept it as presented.
Got a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? We'll roll call, since Ed is still in Florida, I assume.
It's like 30,
Ed?
what's the temperature there? It's 30.
He's muted.
You're muted, can't hear you.
I don't know if he's, oh, he is muted. The slash is there. He doesn't have, hold up a sign that shows that little thingy. It takes me forever to find that button.
All
Yeah.
right, we'll move on, we'll get to him when he comes back in.
Tell him to do a thumbs up if he's a yes.
Gotta hear his voice.
Okay,
Kathy,
yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Jason, yes, Steve?
Yes.
Hey, Ed, you get muted yet, unmuted? No, he's gone. All right, so four accepted, one absent.
So I'll have Annie send that out as well as my own self-evaluation as a separate attachment.
Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, now we're gonna move on to the old dog park, current and future use considerations.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about this.
So this was actually an item that the select board had brought up when we
do.
were talking about the potential water supply for the community garden. I don't believe the chairman was here at that particular meeting, but there was some back and forth over a discussion or a desire to figure out exactly whether or not we have 2 dog parks, or whether or not we have 1 dog park, or whether or not we were closing the second dog park or cleaning up the second dog park. So this was just something that was under old business that I forgot to move up onto the agenda the last meeting, and looked at my notes and therefore put it on this agenda. But this was an item, again, that the select board had expressed interest in discussing in further detail.
Everybody's looking at me.
I'll start if you want. So,
Good.
I know I did not understand or realize until we heard the report on the community garden that the old dog park, I'll call it the old dog park, at the back of the softball field, was still in active use. I had understood that, or my impression, what I took away from the opening of the new dog park was, this is where you bring your dog. You can go and you have to register your dog, you get the dog bark pass thing, and you have two sides to it. So there's one side which is, there's hardly ever dogs over there. So if your dog is really skittish or small like mine, timid, you could go on the small side, and then there's the big dog side where all the fun happens. And I just felt that we presented this dog park to the town meeting. It was accepted, it was approved, and we never said there would be an auxiliary dog park happening. I mean, we don't maintain it as a town, we don't have a bark pass for that. So I feel like, yeah, it should not be in active use, because it's just one more area that some department might get a complaint about at some point, and we already have a lot of park area to maintain, and I just don't see the point in continuing that usage of the space at all. I don't see why that would be a good idea.
Becky?
I didn't get a chance to really look into the old documents of when the new dog park was planned for, but was there any discussion on what to do with the old dog park? Like when you move from something, was there some sort of cutoff plan?
No, there was nothing official.
Nothing, okay.
But it began with, and this is where Jason was a real grassroots kind of activist, that there were complaints from the sports field users that the old dog park running along the back of the softball field smelled badly, and depending on which way the wind was blowing, I suppose. And despite some people's best efforts to keep it clean, there was complaints continued, and that's when I think it was you, Jason, did the research and found this amazing grant program
I actually got the information from Mike.
from Mike. Okay, so Mike Dempsey then is the man behind the curtain here, but thank you. No, but it was a fantastic opportunity for the town to have what is an exemplary dog park that people, give us bragging rights. It's a really nice dog park. It's well-used. People love it. People are very friendly there. I think it's fantastic, and I think that's our dog park.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think back to that discussion. I think part of the discussion was exactly what you said, Kathy. Like, we have the dog park, we have the bark pass, and I think the question might have come up, like, did we have a way to lock off that other area or anything like that to kind of redirect people to the main dog park from the old location? That's my recollection of that conversation. So I don't know if we looked into that at all, or what our options there are.
So there is a gate, so we could lock the gate, but the gate's not exactly high. So it's not really necessarily going to deter people from using it if they want to use it. We do not have any signage, but we can invest in signage to allow people to redirect and go towards the other dog park. We can try and seek enforcement through the police if the space is no longer declared for that purpose. There has been instances where the police have had to go over to the utility field because people have taken their dogs off a leash and have played fetch in the larger field. So we do have a greater police presence there, so we can kindly remind people that the dog park location is here and there's a bark pass that you should purchase, and again, redirect those individuals seeking that area to the dog park. So we have that option available if the select board wants to take that position, but you would need to clearly state that that area is no longer to be utilized as a dog park. And then we could take the proper steps of trying to enforce, provide signage, and lock the gate.
And you would have to inform the police, because currently they are directing people to go down to the old dog park, particularly before the other dog park opens.
Oh, okay. Well, I would vote to close the old dog park and just say, would you be so kind, please use the existing dog park? And bark passes are available through they're digital, they're available online and through the town clerk's office. It's a very simple process. And again, this is our dog park. I don't think anyone that voted to have the dog park was of the mind that we needed to have two dog parks. One is good.
You want to.
Never enough dog parks for Jason, but okay.
That's beside the point.
No, but I love the dogs. I mean, and the dogs that are there are fantastic. The people that come to the dog park are wonderful. And so let's grow on what's working. I mean, why try to work with something that didn't work? That was bothering the sports people. I'm saying, why open ourselves up to something that's just going to lead to
Ed, you got any comments?
additional problems?
Well, it seems to me the simplest solution is to put up a sign that says dog park closed.
Yep.
So do we have a motion?
Yep, I'll make a motion to put a sign on the old dog park to indicate that it's closed, and please use the new dog park.
And remove all the old signs?
Okay, what old signs are these? I don't know, but
One that listed as a dog park?
yeah, that one should go.
That may be
I'll
the
second
problem.
that.
That's so
Motion is
funny.
second. Any further discussion?
No.
Just one thing. I mean, I
Yes.
think as we kind of use that entire space for multi-purpose, it is important that we kind of set some guidelines around where, what is acceptable in different spaces. That's my only comment.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's working on becoming a public garden, so.
Right.
But it's going to be able to be utilized for that for forever, for sure. So, any further discussion? That's it?
That's it.
Ed? Roll call vote.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes. Yes.
Kathy?
Yes,
Becky?
Yes.
Jason, yes.
Yes.
Steve? So done.
thank you.
VC Park, discussion on rental lease and open meeting law concerns.
So as the board can see in your packet, I've included both the memo that was sent to DCS asking for explicit clarification about the use of the property as well as guidance for future plans. If you recall, some of the original feedback that we had received was very daunting in the fact that they said that there could be no residential and that, it could only be a caretaker's unit. And then all of a sudden, when we asked for something in actual written form, that guidance changed a little. I still don't think it's 100% clear, but it is definitely more clear and works more in the favor of the town and its current operation. As you'll see in the packet, the letter from DCS specifically specifies that they would allow occupancy that supports the protection and public enjoyment of the park in one or more of the following ways: by housing an individual or community organization responsible for coordinating or facilitating public program or use of the facilities as described above, which is not taking place; by housing an individual or organization responsible for routine park and facility maintenance that offsets costs borne by the town park for park maintenance, which is not happening; or, in lieu of the above, housing an individual or organization that provides a welcoming public presence, deters vandalism or inappropriate use of the park under use terms that generate revenue for the explicit purpose of funding broader park maintenance, which is most likely where we would fall. There is some concern in regards to the revolving fund and the way that those monies collected for the rentals of those 3 units are supplementing the operation of the facility as a whole, not necessarily the actual open space stewardship. But again, when you look at the memo that was supplied to DCS, we did say that the facility is, or those facilities are part of the broader property, because once they become vacant, they become problematic, and obviously, we want to make sure that the park is in good standing. So there was that argument made in the memo, and that didn't seem to cause them to make any further clarification. So I'm of the understanding that the way that the current housing is established should be sufficient. That being said, the follow-up paragraph that they have to that then makes me wonder, maybe not so much, because they start to talk about a caretaker unit. or prescribe specific stewardship duties. So if we were looking to change how the residents are structured, we would need to be a little bit more clear about defining what stewardship responsibilities that would offset the current park cost and be incorporated into a formal agreement with the occupants. So it's something that we still need to further analyze. Essentially, I know that the current rental units are illegal, just because of the fact that the document themselves are not legal. It didn't follow proper procurement, and the documents were not formally approved by town council. There was no formal town meeting vote, and the select board did not authorize such. So therefore, those agreements are not valid. Town council is reviewing the proper recourse, as we had discussed, is trying to alert those residents and to follow a pathway forward. They did provide an example or a sample of another RFP that was issued for a similar situation in another community that we could potentially try and replicate, so that we could then now use that as a way of getting rental or getting tenants into those rental units so that they can continue to generate income for VZ Memorial Park to continue and utilize such. But I think it then goes back to, again, what those formal agreements look like, and then working with the subcommittee of the Conservation Commission or the Conservation Commission as a whole to identify what type of rental units they would like to see in the future. So would they like to change that to be more incorporating of maybe one of the original two options that they present that DCS would be amenable for housing opportunities? So if there is a desire to do more with arts and culture and things of that nature, is there a way to do some type of residency which would tie into the upkeep and stewardship of the open space aspect? So if there is a desire to, again, move more in that direction, we now have the opportunity to take a closer look at that, incorporate that as part of the agreement, and then maybe seek ways of creatively providing additional programming at the site that would then, again, provide additional revenues to go back into the site. So it does give us an opportunity to take a closer look at those areas and see what we can do. But given the state of the rental units, it's going to be difficult with the amount of things that we need to make sure are invested in for a capital nature, just to make sure the roof, boilers, all of those mechanics have enough funding set aside so that they don't deplete the revolving account if there was in fact an issue. And that's, again, part of a larger, broader conversation that the town needs to have as to whether or not it wants to take on those responsibilities. Currently, it's part of the revolving account. We've seen that the revolving account can't handle those types of maintenance and or future costs. And therefore, what are we going to do from a town's perspective if we are allowing those rental units to continue? We do have an obligation, especially when we have individuals living on our property. And so we need to be thoughtful about how, and if the town so chooses, to set aside funds to help with the upkeep of those residential units. So there is still part of a larger conversation that we need to have in terms of the future. So it is good, in fact, that DCS came back with a written opinion that we can move forward with residential units, as it is one of the largest generating revenues for that particular property. However, again, we still have much to discuss as to how that looks. So the other aspect of the clarification that we sought was more so in the terms of the other uses of the property. So we did list out, I worked with Vanessa Lopez, the director over there, and I took a look at all of the other former documents that we had from the self-help grant dating back to the 90s and management plans moving forward. We put together a comprehensive list that was included in the memo that you saw and kind of just gave them all the details, just to, again, if there's something that you see and you have a problem with it, this is now your opportunity to say something, and they did not. So that, in fact, again, was positive news. But that doesn't necessarily, again, solve the issue as to how we're generating funds for the upkeep of the property and the facilities as a whole. And with the report that Innes Associates has issued, obviously we need to make changes in our fees and structures in order to be able to accommodate and have a longer sustainable plan in place for VZ. They did call into question creating the committee, in which case a select board, finance board, recreation member, all were present so that they could be part of this long-term solution. And it might be something that we want to explore creating sooner rather than later. It is under the care, control, and custody of the Conservation Commission, but that does not necessarily mean that they are the only ones that can make decisions in relation. It needs to be a collaborative effort. I think the subcommittee, through their due diligence, and the Conservation Commission would hopefully welcome that. I do know that it is on their upcoming agenda to discuss in more detail, and I also know that Select Board Member Baker had submitted some additional questions, which I forwarded over to the Conservation Commission. So hopefully they'll be able to answer those in a little bit more detail so that we can have a larger conversation. Maybe it's a joint meeting with the Conservation Commission and having just the sole focus of the meeting be on VZ Memorial Park and what we can do collectively as a whole, as this is a town issue that is not just one board's issue. And to kind of dive into those details a little bit more. But again, that's a policy decision for the Select Board to see whether or not that's what you would like to do. But I did think that it was promising to see their response because it does allow us a lot more flexibility and confirmation for future years that we are headed in the right direction, and that the changes that we're looking to make, we will get proper approval from DCS to move forward so that we can make sure that that's in writing so that we do not have to go through this for 10, 20 years down the road.
And you have here listed open meeting law concerns?
So the DCS was just more so must be compliant with all applicable laws, open meeting laws, that 30B, et cetera. I think the biggest thing for us is that the decisions need to be made. The VZ management meetings that are happening are one member of a board in addition to the employees and also a member of the Friends of VZ, wanting to have those meetings with the Conservation Commission and having those meetings be more transparent in terms of the decisions that are being made, not allowing one member to make the decisions on behalf of the Conservation Commission, having to bring those back. That is also something that the town council is putting together a memo to, again, solidify what legally is acceptable in coordination with the Secretary of State for abiding with the open meeting law. So it's more so just a practice. I think the VZ management team can continue to meet and to continue to have those discussions. I don't think that that's wrong. It's just the decision-making needs to come back to the Conservation Commission. So no different than sometimes what I do with this board. I go through, I meet with people, I gather the information, I bring all the information to you, and I say, these are our options, this is my recommendation, and then you as a board say, no, we want you to do this, and then I say, okay, then that's what I'll do, or if no, we agree, then I say, okay, then I'll carry forward with that task. So the same type of mentality. So it doesn't mean that those meetings can't take place. It just means that the decisions need to be more documented and happen in open session with the commission as a whole. So I do think that all of the challenges that we were presented, we can overcome. And I think it's just a great opportunity to, again, establish a way forward so that we can make sure that VZ is sustainable and has a solid financial setup, and moving forward, what type of responsibility does the town want to take in that? Because again, it's always fallen down to the revolving account, and there's been this back and forth, back and forth. When we bought the property, we said we weren't going to pay anything, but it's town property. How do you not pay for something that's town property? You're all at risk if something happens to the town property. So the conversation's never been really clear as to what responsibilities the town is willing to take, and I think it's really important now more than ever that we kind of establish that. And if there is going to be a desire to move forward with residential, it really needs to be clear, because it is the town that is at risk. Whatever decision the planning board, the Conservation Commission, the zoning board, the recreation committee, whatever any one of those boards decide, whether they be elected and or appointed by the select board, it is ultimately the residents and the taxpayers who are footing any of those bills when there's legal issues or any liability that comes our way. No different than with the water and sewer. If they bond, they're bonding based upon our rating, not their rating, the town's rating. We're backing that. So it's really important that we understand that this is a town issue. This is not one board, one commission, one person, no group of people. So if we want it to succeed, I strongly encourage this board to work collaboratively with all parties to make sure that we have a pathway forward that we can all agree on.
Anybody have any questions for Rebecca?
Yeah. First of all, I wanted, not a question, but a comment. I think you wrote a phenomenal memo that asked for some very specific information, and they didn't really address it. And not only that, they didn't even date theirs. I mean, they don't even know the date, okay? But they did give us leeway, which I think is a good idea. They gave us leeway, and it took us, 30 years or whatever to get where we are now. So I don't expect that we're going to, jump off a board and have this all fixed overnight. It took a lot of volunteers, a lot of time to figure out how to get things done up there. And I commend all that effort that went into it, because we wouldn't have what we have now if they had just turned their backs on it and said, fine, go sled on it and go kayak on the pond and let the buildings just fall apart. I do think that having some type of occupancy there is a huge deterrent, because right now, I mean, people can leave their kayaks down there. And for the most part, knock on wood, I shouldn't have said it out loud, but you don't have to worry that much. Someone's going to come by and damage them or do something malicious. So, and I think that's because there's housing that's occupied right there at the bottom of the driveway, and then there's housing that's occupied at the top. That being said, I looked through a lot of what the state said, and it was back and forth and back and forth. It's not entirely clear to me what they're saying or not saying, but they're basically putting it on us, is what I'm getting from this. It's our responsibility to figure out, make sure we're not breaking any laws or doing anything we're not allowed to do. So we did have a management plan for the park. And my question is that something that should be the crux of what we do now? Update that management plan to make sure that we're complying with whatever they've kind of suggested we have to be. So, I mean, it seems like somebody living at the house on the top, if I'm reading this right, is okay if they're involved in the management of the property, which that person is in several ways, as far as the kayaks and the rentals and the facilities use and groups coming up to use it, whether for that dark skies night and all that. I thought that was what the person lived up there kind of did.
The current tenants are not responsible for doing that.
They don't, then who is? Who's the person my husband contacted for
That's
his?
Vanessa Lopez. She's the director there.
And doesn't she live up there?
She does not.
Oh. Well,
At
maybe
one
she
point in
should.
time, she did, but she does not. And
Oh, okay, so I'm out of date here, okay. So
Sure.
she doesn't live there anymore, so that, okay. So to me, that's kind of the thing. I look at all of the, keeping track of the maintenance of the buildings. And again, I like what you said in yours about the buildings are part of the legacy. They are, I don't think, even persons such as myself that are concerned about the cost of buildings, I don't want to see them torn down or ruined or allowed to just collapse upon themselves. If we have useful building space there that we can have different public events, or like the meeting I went to for the Garden Club sponsored with the Dark Skies, phenomenal meeting, great information. The room was full. It was really a nice evening. I appreciated being able to just drive up there and sit through that. And I don't know if they do it anymore, but years ago they did have an astronomy club up there, which I brought my son up to, and that again was a really fun night. And that was well attended. So I'm guessing that a lot of the different events that they're doing are well attended for the public. As far as I know, they do the private party things, but the public events are well attended. And I'd like to see us build on that, but it seems like if we were able to get somebody on site who was responsible for some of the maintenance, some of the handiwork, or some of the keeping track of that, that would take some of the burden off the town and some of the liability off the town, right?
We can definitely, so to answer two, one in regards to the management plan, there's a little bit more than just the management plan, because the Conservation Commission has been doing a great job keeping up with the management plan itself. But it's
Okay.
more so as the property as a whole. And remember the confusion originally, you have DCR, which is more concerned with the conservation restriction and the open space component, and DCS, which is more concerned with the facilities and uses of the property.
And then another memo from the wildlife people who want to go walking around up there.
But that's in regards to Meadow Pond, that's not in regards to VZ.
Okay, that's Meadow Pond. Okay, so everybody wants to be here.
But there's a lot of different agencies involved. So when they're asking for management plan updates, they're asking more of the management plan to address some of these issues, that it's all included in one
Okay.
document moving forward, and that they get those management documents as well. Because currently,
Okay.
their responsibility to report is to DCS on the management plan. And we're
Okay.
submitting and timely and again, good reports to DCR. DCS isn't reading them though. So,
Okay.
because DCS isn't getting them. So based upon my reading of what they had done in their response is that they want to make sure that the management plan includes a description of any anticipated uses of each of the building, the policies and practices that govern issuance of the agreements for use, and a budget identifying the costs and revenues associated with individual building use and maintenance. So whether it be two separate management plans or
Okay.
enhancing our current management plan, I think it makes sense to make it all one document so that this never becomes an issue again, and we clearly identify that we're reporting to both DCS and DCR. But again, that's just my recommendation. But it sounds like as long as we're capturing that in the plan, we should be all set. In regards to the leases, I mean, I think that the biggest thing is that you can incorporate that as part of the lease agreement. You can specify, and if you can specify that this person is going to be responsible for locking or checking or fixing or doing that, you can actually reduce the cost of the rent in exchange for those services. But what you do is through the actual agreement itself, you're very specific about what those terms are and what you're responsible for. Because say somebody gets in there, you reduce the rate and they don't fulfill any of the duties, I mean, you have to have a
Right.
binding agreement that holds them, liable for not agreeing to the terms that they signed off on.
Right.
So it's really about identifying what it is that you want that individual or what that property should be responsible for, and clearly outlining that within the agreement, and then identifying a cost to reduce their lease by based upon the exchange of services. And town council will help us do that when they also help us do an RFP that's very specific, because you essentially issue an RFP that says you have X amount of square feet, X amount of bedrooms, and you're looking for somebody to live here, and exchange for that, you have to check on the kayaks and you have to,
Yeah.
mow the lawn or do something over for Lucille's cottage every 5 months. It'll be listed in the RFP, and that person will have an opportunity to essentially say, well, I'll give you X amount of dollars to do that. And then it
Okay.
essentially goes to the highest bidder as to whoever will offer the best price for the town, for that property, that it's being advertised for such use. This is what you can do at the property, this is what you can't do. That RFP is very specific and dedicates exactly the terms of what you're looking for. So the town can be very specific, and that gets drafted into the lease agreement, and then that becomes the binding document for both the tenant and the landlord being the town.
Do you think that makes them, I mean, they've mentioned in both yours and in the state's response, that they understand the need for this income to come in from the rental units, because we do need it. I mean, much as people might say, oh, we're losing money there, we could be worse off. We could be a lot worse off up there. So let's not go down that path, is what I'm thinking, is let's not make it worse. Let's not make it financially a worse thing, because it is a beautiful property, and again, I think too, there is an amount with, especially with the main house, and it's a legacy, it's a part of that property, and I like the idea of incorporating everything into one management plan, so that going forward, the state, all these different initial people, whoever they are, don't keep kicking us back and forth and telling us that we're not doing something when we're trying to do everything they asked of us,
I would
Yeah.
agree. I would just say, again, my biggest concern is that if the town wishes for the residents to continue, I think we have a pathway forward to do that. But again, I'd like to reiterate that the revolving fund and the amount of rent that you're going to get for those units will not be able to upkeep those units. And if something happens, now that we're doing this the proper way with the proper document and the RFP, the town is responsible. If that roof goes, the town must pay to fix the roof, because the revolving account can't do that. So
Right.
if we're looking to open ourselves up to residential units and to clearly confirm and identify such moving forward, we need to think about including the facility as a whole in our next topic, which is our capital improvement plan, and setting aside funds, taxpayer dollars, to go into updating and making sure that the facility is compliant so that
Right.
we can ensure the public safety of those individuals who are going to be living in those units.
So are you more concerned with one building than another building when you refer to the upkeep? Because I feel like the main building, I know we've had several projects up there to make it handicapped accessible and maintain it at some level, right?
Correct, but the main unit, every single unit that there is somebody that we are going to have somebody live, I think is of a concern. The house at the bottom and the house at the top, and
Yeah.
also the unit above. The unit above, I know that there was lead concerns when there was a family who moved in, so we had to do some abatement. That's a very costly thing. I know that there was some window improvements that needed to be done. That was very costly, and that set the revolving account back, because they just don't take in enough revenue to set monies aside for these large capital investments. And the ADA that they had done, that was funded through CPC, and that was for the main building and the facility as a whole, as like the function hall or event
Right.
space. The upstairs unit, there's no elevator. Like to get to the top unit, like there's stairs, so it's not ADA compliant.
And because it's publicly owned, it has to be? Is that the?
Well, that's a question we'd have to run by Sam, but I do know that you cannot get to that unit without going upstairs.
Right. So would it be a good idea to have the committee that you spoke of, working with conservation, take a look? It seems to me the residential rental part of it is the one that needs a look-see, right? To see how much are we talking about liability for the town cost-wise to bring these either up to where they need to be or to keep maintaining them.
Or
we
to
could-
establish a fund to put
Right,
money
right.
aside for.
See, we need to have our eyes wide open, is what I'm saying, eyes wide open going into this. And I think it needs to be a careful, considered process. I don't think it's something like we've had the property for 30 years now, so we're not going to decide this in the next 2 months. But I think all the work you've done is phenomenal. I think, again, your letter was great. Their letter helped me understand it, but it was a little wishy-washy, I thought, and maybe a committee working on it would then, rather than us firing back at them with more specific questions, maybe some committee work would be advisable to try and figure out what is the best path and why.
Oh, I agree, and I
Yeah,
definitely think that
okay.
whatever response that we do issue, we should tell them, this is what we're going to do.
Okay,
And if they have a problem with it, let us know, but we're informing you, and now it's up to you to tell us if this isn't allowable. But this is what we're putting forward. Because I think that, again, because their responses are, 1 minute it's this, another minute it's that, or this is what I think, but then putting it in writing, well, if I'm gonna put it in writing, I'm gonna make it a little bit more, broad. And it's like you said, that's great. We need the flexibility. We don't want somebody to come in and say, you must do this now, because it's going to take a long time. But at the same time, if they don't give us firm direction, then you can't expect us to become compliant with something that doesn't exist, because it's a moving target. So
Right.
to tell them, this is what we're doing, and if you have a problem with it, let us know, and put it like I did in the memo. Otherwise, we're just assuming that we are compliant, and now it's on you. So I think that, to your point, after we do create some type of committee to establish a pathway forward, it's the same approach. This is what we're doing, and we're gonna assume that we are compliant unless you tell us otherwise.
right. And so during this interim period now, the town attorney is just looking over the leases to make sure they're okay. to
Specifically
continue-
residential.
Okay, and then the committee could begin the work, and everything that's going on with programming could continue for now, because I think the programming has been really well-received within the community. Okay, thank you.
You got anything, Steve?
Yeah, a couple things. So on the residential units, kind of some immediate concerns / questions. Does our town liability insurance cover us to use those as residential units?
So we have a separate insurance for VZ Memorial
Okay,
Park.
and
it
that
does
covers
include
residential use, okay. And then I know something we spent a lot of time on our other lease agreements with was around fire protection, all that stuff. Do we know if those buildings, those units are up to speed in terms of that? Are they
We don't
compliant?
expect them.
Okay. So that would be kind of an immediate concern, because obviously if we're not doing our due diligence and providing that as the landlord, then we could that could create a lot of liability. So I think that's something we should try to address sooner rather than later. I think in terms of, you know, the upkeep of those units and making sure that they're sustainable, it sounded like they did lay out in the memo that we got back some things that we were allowed to do, and, you know, upkeep would be okay with that. What would it take, or what would the level of effort be to do something similar to what we did for the library, where we kind of did an evaluation and said, okay, you know, these are the things we think we're gonna need to do in these units, and start to put together what that might look like?
If we can gain access to the units, I think we can work with our building commissioner to get like a very basic
Sure.
review. And then we can look and see, we did do an evaluation with a third party for 46 Washington Street in terms of like structural and others. So I think that there are vendors out there that we could contact that would give us a more detailed analysis of things that would need to be done. But I think if we're looking for a first step or just a first go-through, I think having somebody like our building commissioner, Sam Joslin, go through, as well as our fire chief and his fire inspector as part of his group, to kind of walk through and make sure that all of those systems and some of the things that they see as immediate concerns are documented, we would have a better understanding as to what we would need to do more immediate. So we could definitely move on that more quickly. We would just need to, again, provide the resident with a certain amount of notice to be able to go into those units and explore a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, again, like, mainly from the safety perspective, I would just be concerned if there wasn't, you know, fire alarms, or if there wasn't proper egress in the case of a fire, like if we're putting, you know, not only the town, but the residents at any type of risk, and we're responsible for that. I think it's something we need to address. But then starting to wrap our head around, you know, what capital improvements would be needed there, because we need to evaluate that as part of this to understand, you know, what happens next. Is it, you know, oh, it just needs, you know, some paint, or is it, hey, it needs a new roof and there's a wall that needs to be taken down and replaced? Like, we need to start to wrap our head around some of that. And then the other question on the leases is, do we know what the terms, like when those leases expire? Are they at will at this point? Are they currently active leases? I know they're invalid from the perspective of they weren't signed by the select board, but what are the?
They're all at will at this point.
Okay.
Becky?
Well, I just wanted to say, I think all of this is just like an unfortunate situation based on just blurred lines of responsibility, blurred lines between what the state intended it to be. It's just tough to see all of this happening, but happy that we're looking at it and trying to make things right moving forward. I had watched the Conservation Commission meeting. I know there is a subcommittee, and they're already doing like discovery and research. So there's things in motion with that, right? So I'd be interested to see how that sort of plays out. I think your idea of maybe once they have that and they talk to Conservation Commission, maybe bringing us in for a joint meeting to discuss it. But if there's already people looking into it, it just, to have other people doing the same, I'm not too sure if that's needed. Again, I don't know if, I'm not the expert on all of this. And then as far as the residential leases, I know they mentioned Massachusetts Chapter 30B. I did not get a chance to look at it. It's a very extensive manual.
Yes.
And even that is confusing when it talked about having things being like publicly, like advertised. It's if it's $35,000, but that calculation is if you're leasing the space, you determine the value of the disposition by calculating the fair market price of the lease over the entire contract term. So again, these are things that we have to kind of learn along the way. The open meeting law, I was wondering with that, just as far as, I don't know the cadence for Conservation Commission, is it once a month?
I think it's once a month.
Once a
every
month?
third Wednesday, I believe.
So if something happens and they have to make a decision at that management meeting, but they're not meeting for like 3 more weeks, I don't know if, does that I mean, you get stuck in those situations too, right? So I
But you
don't,
delegate me as a town employee to make those
Right.
decisions, and then I'm held accountable. And I'm not a board member. I'm not
Yeah.
an elected official.
Right,
So
right.
I'm not making a decision on behalf of the board. I'm,
Yeah.
like, I'm on your decision. I'm making a
Right.
decision in my capacity, and you
Yeah.
can hold me accountable. But if Jason goes to a meeting and decides to say something and says that he's speaking on behalf of the board, where's the accountability?
right, right,
So there's no accountability to say, hey, we as a board didn't agree to that. We didn't vote on that. We actually voted to research it further. But if I say I come back, I had to make a decision, it was something that was, pressing, they had no other opportunity to meet with the board, we couldn't do a special meeting, you're gonna be like, well, that's a strike against you and your performance evaluation, we're gonna say you need development because you
Right.
made poor decisions. And you can fire me. You can't fire
Right.
an elected official.
Right, right.
And then to remove an appointed member is a very difficult and political type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's really important from that perspective, more so than the fact that I understand, like, operationally, things come up, but you delegate that to the conservation agent.
Right.
And the conservation agent is now responsible for those. Or you do have an outside consultant running the show, and you do give them that authority in those certain situations, which the Conservation Commission would clearly lay out those terms and say, in these situations, we invest in you the authority to do A, B, and C. Otherwise, you cannot do that. But that's kind of up to the board as a whole to delegate those duties.
okay. So there is a way to acknowledge that and work around that, okay. That was really all that I had for comments.
What about you, Ed?
No, I think everything's been covered.
I agree. I think it's going to be important to wait until we get a response from the additional questions that Steve had sent in.
Yeah, if we could get copies, it would be nice for the board to know what they are. I have no idea.
Yeah, and basically, I just wanted to get some clarity from the Conservation Commission on what it looks like in terms, I think, as you mentioned, Kathy, there's a great list of things that we're doing up there. I just want to understand a little bit around the process for renting those facilities out. Like, how are we going from the perspective, from the point of, someone reaches out and says, hey, I want to use the space, to, signing a contract, collecting fees, and then, depositing those fees in the right accounts, and then giving them access. I just want to understand what that process looks like.
Right, I think, just to put like the historic perspective on it, it's not like we purchased the property and immediately put a for rent sign up.
Sure.
We inherited a family that was already living there when we purchased the property, and I think the feeling was not to evict a family on the purchase of the property. And then it was really a huge volunteer effort at the upper buildings that got them into what I'd call at least a very usable fashion for us. And, I know that we had, it was, I thought, for the veterans, but I know Donnie Gurney did the cooking down in the kitchen. We had a big spaghetti supper there once or twice. I know that the Council on Aging tried using, or was it Council? I think it was them. They tried using the facilities up there for a while, but those were a little bit remote for most of the people that were coming, even with the assistance that was provided on the walkways. But I mean, my understanding of the buildings is as far as to the best of the ability of everybody that's been in charge of managing them, and I applaud the people because they put in so many hours. I believe that, they did try to make sure that we had fire alarms, we had the proper safety measures in place. It's not like we are slum landlords at least to my knowledge, that's not what we're doing up there. But there is definitely, a concern that we make sure that initially the concern was just to make sure these things could pay for themselves. And that was the message this board was in the past sending back to conservation over and over again, because we had to take out a separate insurance policy because there was residents in the buildings overnight. Okay, fine. So they did push, and now we've caught the state's attention as far as I understand, because, we have different events going on up there. But I believe the residents that have also booked the use of these buildings for special events, including memorial services, have really enjoyed and felt privileged to be able to have those services in their hometown, in a place that they recognized and that their loved one had been to. It just, like it completes the circle. I'm not saying that's the justification, but I'm saying there's a lot of good feelings connected to the usage of that land, not just for sledding, but for other things. And I see a potential here for us to do even better going forward and make sure that this property is properly supported so that, conservation that's managing it doesn't have to feel like they're going to get yelled at every time they come in here with a problem with the buildings. Let's get the facts together, find out what we're dealing with now 30 years down the line as far as these buildings, and then make a collaborative effort to determine a really good course.
Sure.
And that's kind of what goes back to the thing. I
Yeah.
wasn't saying that we should have multiple different committees looking at something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the subcommittee originally was looking closely at whether or not they were compliant and what the next
Mm-hmm.
steps were in order to be compliant. I think it really goes back to, again, being representative of the fact that this is a town facility and involving as many town boards as we possibly can so that everybody is invested in what we're talking about. Like the CPC, you have various different representatives representing various different interests of the town that all meet collectively to analyze projects from one perspective in terms of what works for community preservation. I think the same thing should apply for VZ, and it should be the Conservation Commission that reviews whatever it is that that committee discusses as to whether or not they want to move forward, because they're ultimately managing the property. But it's collectively the Recreation Committee, the Finance Board, a select board member, a conservation member, that are having these discussions like as a comprehensive whole of saying, why don't we consider this, or why don't we do this? And just like the community preservation, they come in and they present that to the Conservation Commission to say, this is what we think we should do. They vet that as that authority, and then it is more of a public dialogue that the public gets to watch, be involved in. It's all recorded, and you're having representatives from multiple different boards that get to buy in and take ownership of the decisions being made so that nobody feels attacked or nobody feels like their efforts and the what they put forward is being belittled in any way, shape, or form, because that's definitely not the intent. The intent is that this is a town facility, and if it is a town facility, then the town as a whole should be responsible. So instead of passing the buck and to continue to point fingers, which is not what we're trying to do, making it something that we all chip in together is the only way I see this as succeeding. Otherwise, it's going to be continuing, oh, this is wrong, or this, and somebody's feelings hurts here, and somebody's mad here, and it's not going to be productive whatsoever.
Yeah. I personally love the goats. That's one of my favorite things to see every year. See the goats out there eating that grass so we don't have to mow it. It's fun.
Anybody else have anything else to say?
Yep.
I guess, do we want to discuss either now or at our next meeting, creating that type of committee that would kind of take a look at that and work on that kind of plan going forward?
I think we should probably push that to the next meeting, and maybe we can apply the template that we put together for the other committees. So when we come in to form that, we'll have a good outline of
Okay,
what that committee will look like.
I guess I'm feeling confused at the end. Maybe, maybe this end of the meeting I hear differently. I thought what was said here tonight was that there already was a subcommittee within the Conservation Commission, and that we would work with that to add to it some additional members with, of course, with their approval and create this, that we wouldn't just create another committee without the subcommittee from Conservation that's already doing all this work. Am I
From my
wrong?
understanding, the subcommittee was only created to look into what we had brought forward as concerns to make sure that they were compliant. If the board, being the select board, wants to continue to allow the subcommittee to operate, then that's completely fine. But it's two members of the Conservation Commission, and I don't believe that that would be the best way forward, in my personal opinion, as to being representative and to get the buy-in and to get the collaborative effort that we just talked about. So if you would like to continue to ask that the Conservation Committee charge their subcommittee with further identifying future uses of the property and structure of the property, then that's up to the board to decide.
No, that's not what I asked. What I'm asking is, I thought what was discussed here was not to create another committee, right? Those were the words that were said. Did I miss that? And that we would take the existing committee that's already working on this and expand it to include like the building inspector and the town administrator, but that,
But that would be forming another committee, because we can't expand a subcommittee of the Conservation Commission committee.
no, we would ask them to join forces.
Right, so we'd be
collaborative.
creating another committee.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, but you would,
committee
say-
has to be
but we would
created.
first make sure that the other committee had fulfilled what it was doing. Because again, what I'm concerned about is having two different boards, ours and the conservation, with two different committees, potentially creating more confusion and conflict unintentionally, not on purpose, but unintentionally. And I've seen that before. So before we decide what needs to be formed, can we find out from the Conservation Commission as a whole whether they're open to this idea of what we're saying? They're the management force for this property, right? We want them to be involved in this collaboration. Am I wrong?
Well, we have, I mean, I guess I see the multiple aspects of it, right? Because we have a liability aspect and a financial aspect, and I don't know if the Conservation Committee is looking at that with their subcommittee, and I think we should be looking at that.
Yes, that's not what I asked, though. I just simply asked, in the spirit of collaboration with our Conservation Commission, which we appoint, right, that we ask them to join forces. Do we want one or two members from there? I don't know. Two would be fine as far as I'm concerned, because they have the history of this facility and this land, and they know a lot more about it than most people would. And so if they've completed the task that they were initially appointed to do, I don't know, because I didn't watch the meeting, apologize, don't catch every meeting, but, I know they're good people on the Conservation Commission with good intentions, and that they've been involved in this property for a long time. So I would think that you'd want that knowledge base, for sure. And then, yes, I think the town administrator, the building inspector, and maybe a finance board member would be phenomenal. And I don't know that anything else really needs to be involved at this point to make it when you make it too big a committee, then all of a sudden it becomes a little unwieldy. They can certainly go to other committees like Recreation and get input once they understand more what they're thinking about. But I do like the idea of getting a collaborative committee formed and working with Conservation on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could certainly get their input on it. I think that I have some thoughts, and again, maybe we put it on a future agenda. But, I mean, I think that committee should have representation from Recreation. I think it should have representation from Finance, obviously Conservation,
Why Recreation?
because, I mean, Recreation can help with programming, they can help with things that we.
But I feel like that's further down the line than where we are right now. I mean, the biggest concern right now is where we are right now. I mean, Recreation, I think, has a nice task in town. They have all the sports things and all that stuff going on, and they do some other nice events, and that's wonderful. But I think right now we have what is essentially a financial and potentially legal problem, which is why I would want the town administrator involved. And the Conservation Commission is the management authority for the park, right, for VC Park?
Yep,
Okay, so
I think we
fine.
should put it on a future agenda.
Yes, let's put it on the next agenda, and let's go ahead and discuss about actually forming the committee, what type of members we're going to expect, and put it into that format, because that format is very important, and that's why we set up that format. I think the biggest thing that you touched on was the transparency for the town, because the subcommittee does not have open meetings. They're not required to. And I think having a real committee will have those open meetings that can be recorded and broadcast. And that level of transparency is very important. And I think it's very important that we also implement it to be set up the way that we have agreed to set up for all of our future committees.
Yep, I like that.
And I'll
But-
send a request over to the Conservation Commission asking them what their subcommittee charge is and whether or not they would be open to having the select board create a committee with a Conservation Commission member, and if so, would they like the subcommittee to be 2 members of that board?
Right, yeah, 'cause it makes sense if they have information that you have access to that information, right? eyes wide
I thought they
open.
would be a member of the committee regardless. I didn't think that they wouldn't. And recreation is a huge part of the property as a whole because they do passive recreation, not just active recreation. So they're already working with the Conservation Commission in regards to the trails over at VZ.
Oh,
use of the
okay.
Property.
I didn't
So-
understand
and
that.
it's more of the broader thing, not just the issues that we have. What are we talking about for long-term
Okay.
structure and use? Like immediate concerns, but long-term.
So, right, I understand if it's about the trails and the things already in existence, because I thought that would be probably the primary charge of this committee initially, would be what we have right now, and let's make sure that it works, that we can have this, and we can maintain it, and we can fund it.
And would be a long-term, not a short-term committee with just.
No,
one
it wouldn't.
task. Yeah.
I mean, eventually, would you want a bylaw that like the CPC has a bylaw that creates it? We might, somewhere down the line, want to look at that in order to make sure that, 10 years from now, VZ Park is still maintained and funded. Because, people move, people change, and all of a sudden, people forget about something,
And that's probably the hardest thing, because, I mean, the
Yeah.
fact that we're doing our best to make it as self-sufficient as possible is what brought up all these questions.
Right. But I mean, we have other, like the old schoolhouse and the garden club, they don't earn enough money to maintain that all the time. I mean, we have things like this in the town, these legacy buildings that we do need to think about long-term plans for them. Because you can't assume that plant sales and, winter celebrations are always going to raise enough money to fund the kind of, roof replacement and things like that, right? Those are big ticket items. Yeah.
All right, so we can move on.
Yep, that's great. Thanks.
Now we have a capital improvement plan presentation.
Do we have it in our packet?
This was handed to me after the fact.
Oh, well, so it wasn't in the packet? 'Cause I
It
didn't,
was
my
actually-
packet ended.
There's a link in the meeting invite.
Oh, is that it? I didn't, because I didn't see it. I
I
just,
think we're gonna, yeah, here we go.
so the whole thing ended with,
So I
wait a
am
minute.
really excited to share with you the capital plan for FY '27 to FY 2031. As you'll see, we have a new portal that we've been using to formulate this plan. So just a quick look through. You have your introduction, you have some information as to what a capital plan is, and why prepare a capital plan. You have a list of our capital assets from election facilities, information technology, parks and open space, roads, bridges, equipments, et cetera. And then you have your funding, sources, so what you have listed for your local resources, your state and federal, Community Preservation Act, debt services, grant, reserve funds. Then you have your actual capital plan. You can go through the process, the scoring of the capital projects, the project request, the actual plan itself. And then if you go into more, you can go and find all of the actual project sheets. So you'll see each individual one has an actual narrative as to what's being requested, et cetera. So this is the portal that is where you can find all of this information. If you go to the website and you go to the select board, or you go to the town administrators page and you scroll down, you can go to the FY '27 annual budget and financial information, and you click on that. And what you'll find is all of the information that we have been discussing for the budget. You'll find the budget timeline, you'll find the department requests that were submitted, you'll find the YouTube video of all of the recordings and a listing out of which departments were at that particular meeting. And then you'll find some other helpful information such as the financial management letters, the financial policies, and then again, if you click here, you go to the capital improvement plan, which has all of the documentation there. So I first wanted to start off with just sharing that with you before getting into a presentation for the capital improvement plan. All of the additional information, all of the narratives, all of the detailed information can be found on this page. The presentation that I have for you this evening is more of a high overview of that. I just figured it'd be a better use of your time. I do apologize that it wasn't clear that the link had all of the information for you to review, so I'm sorry if you weren't able to take a look at this in advance. So I am happy to slow down and/or take things at a slower pace if necessary. Let me just stop sharing that and share the presentation. Sorry. Whoop. Share screen.
We're looking at ourselves. There we go. Nice.
So, capital improvement plan. So what is a capital plan and why is it important? So this is a multi-year plan for preserving and upgrading public assets that takes into consideration your roads, bridges, buildings, roofs, equipment, technology upgrades. And why do we do it? We want to plan today to save tomorrow. So we want to help the town plan ahead instead of reacting, ensure critical needs are funded on time, prevent sudden emergency calls, protect the taxpayers from surprise costs, and support safe, reliable services. So our current financial position and capital readiness. So for fiscal year 2025, as we saw with the year-end report from the town accountant, our collection rate is great at 99.66%. So that just reaffirms that we have a reliable revenue base. Total long-term general obligation debt. So we have $4,355,000 tied up in bonds right now. What that equates to per capita is 713, which is 0.32% of our $1.49 billion valuation of all of our real estate property as a whole, which puts us below the 5% statutory limit. And because we're far below the limit, that means that we have strong borrowing capacity. We also have a healthy free cash and reserves. Certified free cash as of fiscal year 25 was $1.8 million. For stabilization fund, we have gotten that account up to $1.9 million, and our capital stabilization fund is $601,000. So some of the capital plan highlights for fiscal year 27 is mostly in terms of our major facility investments. As you'll see, we are proposing to borrow funds for repair of the town hall complex roof. That includes the town hall, the library, as well as the public safety building. And we're also looking to move forward with the town hall electrical upgrades, and that too ties into all three of those buildings. We did fund in fiscal year 23, I believe it was the generator for the police department. And when we went to go install the generator, it was then that we found out, again, as we've discussed in prior meetings, that our electrical system was not capable of handling the upgrade, and that it currently can't handle the load that we're at. It also was found that they are no longer insured by our insurance provider. So if there was an issue, we would be responsible. So both of those projects has moved up, especially based upon some of the investments that we've already made in town hall, such as the flooring, and some of the other upgrades to the offices. As you'll see when you look up at the tiles, we frequently have leaks and we need to replace them. That's not only here in this building, over in the library, especially the foyer area. It is a disaster every single time it rains. You can expect a bucket and Steve McPherson running around trying to make sure that there's no damage. And the same happens over at the public safety building.
Okay.
Another major facility investment will be the Johnson's Creek Dam improvements. The estimated amount is $1.2 million. We're not looking to borrow, we're looking to continue to look for grants in order to either repair or remove. This is a long-term investment of something that we're looking in. I don't anticipate it actually becoming a project that will be conducted, obviously, in fiscal year 27, but it is something that we're actively pursuing, just given the nature of the project and the importance and need of that particular issue that we're experiencing. Some of the routine equipment and technology upgrades, as you'll see, the police are asking for their Mark Cruiser. This is something that's been associated with the capital plan throughout the last few years. It's their fleet maintenance. They replace the oldest cruiser in their fleet every year with one new cruiser. They're also asking for taser replacements, and you'll see as part of their narrative that this is something that's also a piece of equipment that's been outdated. They are no longer functioning correctly, and they're posing more of a liability concern. And we want to make sure that our officers have the equipment that they need in order to fulfill their jobs. From a technology standpoint, we're looking to upgrade the cameras. We do have camera and security system here at Town Hall. The cameras on the backside of the library also help us monitor activity over at the Pines. With all of the investments that we've made over at the Pines, we've also experienced some activities which have occurred at night, and unfortunately, while we see them doing things like donuts in our fields and ruining our grass, we do not have the ability to identify the individual because we cannot read the plate. So we can tell you what make and model the car is, what time, and we can show you exactly what they did, but we can't necessarily always, sometimes we can, but not always, have that clear shot of the license plate. So therefore, we're looking at updating that system to allow for a license plate reader so that we can, again, identify issues when they occur. And then that also includes the server upgrades. I think we've talked about this. We do have a lifecycle management plan with BSS, and they take care of mainly our computers for our desktop computers, but we own our servers and all of our switches and all of our other equipment, and the servers are outdated. And we're also having some issues because the public safety remote into our servers here. So there's been some upgrade needs that we've identified as part of some of the other improvements that we've made over at the public safety building with the switch over to the North Shore Regional 911 and some of the recabling that involved moving some of the wires out of different offices. So it's a good time to rectify that issue and to finally have updated servers so that we can continue on our pathway of identifying our working group and to identify future capital upgrades that would be necessary. But again, making sure that we have the protection from a cybersecurity and network capability is in place first, always. And then we also have the highway. The highway is looking for replacement of a pickup truck. They're actually looking to buy one pickup truck to replace two. So that is a good thing to have a truck that's capable of doing what they need and eliminating another vehicle that they do not need. They're also looking for mower replacements. From the school side of things, we're going to, and we're proposing to continue to address the asbestos abatement for the flooring over at the school. We slowly have been chipping away at that year after year. This plan for fiscal year 27 really only identifies that as one of the projects that we're moving forward with, mainly because we have at least 3 to 4 outstanding projects that we funded through our capital through the last 3 years that have not yet been completed. So we kind of want to catch up with those projects and make sure that they've been completed and are done and expended prior to issuing additional funds. But we have been working closely with the facilities manager, Jonathan Seymour, as well as the superintendent to make sure that we're moving forward with the capital upgrades that are necessary for the building. We've also would like to, based upon the free cash allocation that we had this year, establish a school capitalization, a capital stabilization fund. We do not have one. As you can see from our capital stabilization, we really only have $600,000. That's not a lot of money. That doesn't really fund any of the projects, but, you know, given the fact that the Pawtucket Regional School has a brand-new middle high school and they don't necessarily need a lot of capital upgrades, doesn't mean that you shouldn't start planning for those capital upgrades, and that includes the Bagnell. So the Bagnell is obviously aging, and as things start to fall apart, it's going to become more and more reliant on the taxpayer and our free cash allocation to fund that, or to use the stabilization accounts that we've already established for a general purpose on just the school, leaving the town vulnerable in other situations. So given the fact that those monies were more than we had expected, putting aside those monies so that they can earn interest and they can be set aside specifically for the school if anything was to happen for the school, any additional maintenance or upgrades or any capital project that comes forward, we could then use those funds specifically for the school. And we've seen how that has helped a community like West Newbury when they did not need to take out the debt that both Groveland and Merrimack needed to, because they had those funds set aside. And I think that it would be fiscally prudent for the towns to move forward in that direction, because it will open us up to a better financial position if something were to come down later on. And to slowly add to that account will only, again, put us in a better financial position.
Just a quick, before I forget, did we ever get a report from the school about what money they put into the Bagnell, what capital? Because they're handling now 20,000 and below, right? Cost-wise?
Technically, our regional agreement has not been updated, so technically, it's 10. I believe that they
Are you
have.
kidding me?
We still have not updated our regional plan. I know that both Merrimack and West Newbury have updated their capital improvement bylaw, as well as us, to include that to be 20. But
Yes.
without that being explicitly mentioned in a regional agreement, as we've experienced with Whittier and others, like, it's very important that we have that language. So I think that they're honoring that to the best of their ability to use the 20,000 as the threshold, but I don't think anything has triggered that at any particular point in time, or that I've been aware of. But I can reach back out to Jonathan and ask him for a detailed list, if that's what the board would like. Because I do know that that was talked about when we were going forward with the regional.
Well,
agreement.
in our current regional agreement, it says they are supposed to submit to us at the end of every year a list of whatever they've done to maintain our school. Because obviously, if they don't do anything, things just continue to deteriorate, and then we have something that's costing more than $20,000. So they do have a pretty good-sized maintenance budget, and I just wondered, how much of it have they spent on the Bagnell?
I can ask for that breakdown.
Okay, thank you.
So we are looking to spend about $580,124 of free cash on our capital projects that we're proposing to move forward for fiscal year '27. About 82% of that is going towards the building, but obviously we're talking about millions of dollars for the roof and also the electrical upgrades. The second that comes in is the 8%, and that goes with the server replacements as well as the, no, sorry, that's the highway. And then the server replacements are at 3%, and the police upgrades are at 6%, and then the school is only at that 1%. And again, that is because we have over well, I think it's about $500,000 of monies that have been tied up in some of the capital projects that just haven't been carried out yet. So we are waiting for those to get completed before designating more. So you will see that as a lower percent, but that's not because we're not investing, it's not because we're not making improvements, it's just that there's a lag with some of the projects that have already been approved.
Further, just a question on the security cameras. Do we have funds set aside in the event that we make some of the improvements at other fields to put cameras there as well? I know we're talking about bathrooms at a couple of places, things like that.
So based upon the system that we had, we would be able to add
Okay.
additional cameras at those locations if necessary that would talk to the current system that we have. So we do have the capabilities. We didn't necessarily set aside funding for that, but we can add that to the plan to make sure that we have that in the future.
Yeah, I just think if we're gonna be doing improvements in those potentially doing improvements in those locations, if they are approved, we should do it right from the beginning.
That makes sense.
A question on the roof, are we at all looking at any coordination of solar panels to power the town complex when we do the roofs? That would be the time to look at it, right?
We can take another look. I know that when we had our initial conversation with the Groveland Municipal Light, they were not necessarily in favor of adding the solar panels. I know we were at that same meeting, but but I did not hear that they were necessarily on
I
board.
don't know that we need them to be on board. As far as I understand it, the only thing that we'd lose out on would be that any excess power, they're not going to purchase from us. It'll just get dumped. But the power that we get from it that is the solar panel, that's ours. And that can power this building, and then you wouldn't be paying for the electricity and the cooling in the summer. Because you do have good exposure to the sun here. We know that.
We did not incorporate that as part of our pricing, so if we did want to explore solar panels, we would need to figure out exactly how much we would need to invest and whether or not, because while it is our property, Groveland Municipal Light is the energy provider, and they would have a say for us to connect.
I believe we have homeowners in Groveland that have solar panels.
They have a provision in there that allows homeowners to connect. I don't know if it's different for municipalities.
Right, well, it'd be good to find out, because I do think it's a lot of money you're putting into the roof, and this would be the time to do it. You don't do it afterwards. You don't want to rip up the roof after you do it.
Why
So,
would you have to rip up the roof?
I mean, you don't want to I think you want to incorporate it as part of a roof project. You don't want to do the roof and then go looking out for solar panels. I mean, I think doing it at once makes a lot more sense than separating it. But maybe speak to a solar panel company and see what they say.
We can definitely do that, and I can report
mean-
back to the board.
Yes, and it'll be very important to find out what the return on investment is. I mean, it's been a while since I've been involved in solar panels. So back when I was, which was 2010, it was a 42-year return on investment. So I don't know if that would make it practical, and it may be why the electric company is not really all that interested in it.
I know it was not something that they were definitely on board with. I don't think that they were adamantly opposed, but I didn't get the warm and fuzzy feeling that they wanted us to move forward in that direction. I know I've been trying to move forward with a green communities designation for a while now, since I started here at as a town planner, because you can invest in a lot of your facilities in green energy infrastructure, and they'll pay for it. But there are things that you would need to do. I've been trying to work an angle that we are a National Grid customer for one building, which would be the school, because they're on National Grid, so therefore do we classify as a customer, and therefore we can qualify. Otherwise, we need the buy-in from the municipal light department in order to participate, and they have vocally said that they would not. So it has been something that I've been trying to invest in, because again, that's monies that we can apply for. The other side of that is that you have to be a stretch code community. We're one of the very few that are not, and I know that in speaking with the building commissioner, he said that most developers will come in and already expect that we are a stretch code and meet those codes anyway. So it's not exactly like a deterrent for development here in town, which it was originally when it started way back when. So there are benefits in terms of, again, the grants and other financial assistance that program can offer for solar panels, heating systems, et cetera, lights. So there's a lot of different things that we could capitalize on. But again, I do think that we would want to work with the Groveland Municipal Light if we were to proceed with solar. But I will definitely reach out to Kevin again and get his feedback. And then I'll also reach out to a company, including the company that we received the quote for the roofs, and
Okay.
see if they've worked with others in the past and what they would recommend.
Right, because, I mean, the bottom line is, the cost of electricity is just going to go up, no question. And, you know, if we're putting in the roofs and they're going to be here for hopefully 20-plus years, why not put something that's going to benefit the town for the 20-plus years as far as energy use? And then you also have the ability to provide cooling on hot days for older citizens, and we don't have to worry about turning the thermostat off, Jason. We can put it down as low as you want. You go. Could have a chill in here. We'll be in our winter coats. But I just think that solar is tried and true now, and it seems to me like they've come a long way with it. So
Oh, that they have.
I would like the municipal electric to be part of this process. I would hope they would be, because they have such a good background in electricity and power that they would be helpful to us.
I will do my research and I will report back to the board.
Thank you.
And one of the other projects that we have on here is the trash carts. As we are all aware, we had invested in recycling carts that we purchased the last town meeting. This would be to purchase the trash carts, and I should say additional recycling carts that are smaller than the 95 gallon that we originally purchased for those eligible households, so that they can have a reduced size. So the order that we have based our estimate off does include, again, that reduction for the recycling, and it also does include the reduction for the trash as discussed. So they would be the 35 gallon for those who qualified, and then there would be the 65 gallon would be the standard size that we would issue. So we did take that into consideration in our count, and that's also included as part of the free cash funding strategy. The other allocation that we have from free cash, but it's not a capital project, is the disposal of the carts, like we've talked about in other meetings. So it is something that we're looking to reduce our free cash by, but again, it's not a capital project because it's $15,000, it's a disposal, there's no life, you're disposing of something, so it doesn't fit the bill here. But we did take that into consideration when we were looking at our overall free cash allocation as a percentage of our operating budget.
Good.
For the debt and financing strategy, like we said, we currently have we're looking to have a bond issuance of $3,457,000. That should be on the top line here, sorry, over here.
Oh, okay.
So I have it on the wrong one. But we have 807,794 retiring notes So we're looking to take on an additional 2.6 million of new monies for the town hall projects with the possible bond terms of up to 20 years and an interest assumption of 3.75%. So we do have some preliminary estimates from Hilltop Securities and our advisors in terms of what we could do potentially moving forward. We've always talked about trying to maintain a strategy of trying to level fund our debt so that we can continue to be responsible and responding to the capital needs without going to the taxpayer. So we do think that we would be able to accommodate this in the budget. So we are still exploring that. We are obviously still assembling the budget, so we still need to figure out what the assessment is from the school, which we'll hopefully know tomorrow. And we're still waiting for the GIC estimates and getting everything situated. But again, with our preliminary review and what we put in for estimates, we believe that we would be able to move forward. We've additionally talked about scenarios, what we've talked about as a whole as well, with using the donation that was made to the library for some of the facility upgrades and trying to figure out what would be the best way for us to move forward, whether or not we take their allocation as a whole as to what they would be responsible for, and we pay that up front, so we borrow less, or whether or not it makes sense to have a reoccurring, $20,000 a year come from that account to offset the debt payment that we need to make on an annual basis. Based upon what we're seeing from our operating budget and the interest rate and the actual minimal impact and putting all that money up front, it sounds like it will be a better strategy to move forward with the incremental payments, because you still have that large sum of money earning interest as well in the trust that they've established. But we're still narrowing down all those details, so we're just going back and forth, but this is what we're assuming. And then I wanted to bring your attention to obviously future capital needs. I think that, those who had the opportunity to watch the finance board, and I think we talked about it briefly at one of our last meetings, the fire chief is looking to add 2 additional personnel. By adding 2 additional personnel, we're gonna need to really explore the future of the fire department. He is originally proposing a 4-on, 4-off, but if we are moving in that direction, that's soon to be a 24-hour. We do not have the facility capabilities of handling with the restrooms and the showers and a bunk room and all of the other upgrades that would need to happen in order to accommodate the additional personnel and the additional operation. So if we are moving in that direction, we should start to plan. So the capital plan that you will see in a second does put forward next fiscal year some monies aside for engineering and design to figure out exactly what we need to do in order to move forward. I do know that we have plans back from the 1970s for when these buildings were built, and it does have, future bunk room, future restrooms, but it doesn't necessarily give you any of the details and what would need to be done, and obviously we would need to go out to bid for that project, so we would need to have specifications and estimates, so it does set aside monies for the next fiscal year for design and engineering for that particular upgrade. Additionally, town meeting had put aside monies for the design of a new highway garage. It did not take into consideration the future construction. We are still working on that design, so we're not exactly entirely sure. I know we had talked a lot about a pre-engineered building, which would cut down the cost substantially, so we are talking with the engineers as to a design-build type of approach, which would, again, save the town a lot of money, but would still need to come up with monies in order to move forward. As some of you have discussed in the past, the Empowerment Act with the state, there is a provision within there for municipal and public safety building authority and other types of funds that they were looking to set aside to create, almost like they do with the schools, where there's the MSBA, where the state will come up with a good chunk of funding to help these projects come to life. And they had talked a lot about public safety buildings, highway garages, town halls, as another challenge for municipalities when needing upgrades. So maybe possibly starting that state funding, which would be a huge benefit to us if we needed to move forward with that. But again, things to just take into consideration as future investments and larger investments instead of just a cruiser or mower that we want to start thinking about and starting to strategically plan for. And then I know it's really small, but that's what we have for the fiscal year 27, fiscal year 2031 plan. As you'll see down here with the central fire station, we talked about the engineering. We're looking for $75,000 in 2028 For 2027, as we discussed, we're looking at funding $3.2 million worth of projects, and that includes those larger projects. It also does not include the Salem Street Dam, because we didn't want to inflate that number, but that would be another $1.2 million in terms of the grant funding that we would be looking for. And you'll see that in fiscal year 2028, we're looking at about $330,000, 2029, 332, 2030, 380, and then 2031, we're looking at about 435. So we're trying to keep and to plan accordingly and keep the projects down as minimally as we can. But as we just discussed, the larger projects being the highway garage, the central fire station upgrades, and some of our other infrastructure needs from the culvert side or the dams, it's something that we need to start better planning for, and at least working towards figuring out a better finance strategy as to how we would like to move forward. But again, this is just kind of a high overview of the plan itself, but when you do have a chance, if you haven't already, to click around, you can find a lot of different information, a lot of background information, and I think a lot of helpful resources to identify some of the things we have in town that are going to require our attention, from the Chapter 90 roadway pavement management plan to the culverts identified as part of a recent study. There is quite a lot of information in there. That's all she wrote.
That's your presentation? Very nice. Anybody have any questions for Rebecca?
Just a comment. This is really good. I think having the transparency, right, having it accessible and having it here is excellent. It is a lot to digest, right? It's a lot to go through, but I think the way that you laid that out made it just very user-friendly. So I hope the residents see it, because this is their money in action, right? This is
And that's all
part of,
available online, which is great.
right.
And it is, I do have, and I printed it out for both Ed and Jason, but we do and can print it out in PDF if anybody would like a hard copy. If any residents would like to come in and would prefer it in paper form, we will have that available. They just need to give us a call and we can make that happen.
That's great. Thank you.
Right.
Ed, you got any questions?
No, nice report.
Very nice.
You got the
Good.
thumbs.
Yep, no questions, looks great.
Awesome.
I think you've exceeded expectations, Rebecca.
As usual.
I mean,
Not as
the whole budget, the whole thing with the budget and the transparency and the meetings are linked. I mean, wow. That's the wow factor. Thank you.
Right.
Appreciate that work. I knew it was not probably an easy thing to pull off, so thank you.
We've had our hurdles.
Good job.
So now we're going to move on to old or unfinished business.
So I just left this on the agenda. I think that Joe Demore also communicated through you, Mr. Chair, about the town study committee. They were supposed to meet, and I guess they didn't have a quorum, so they weren't able to go through what Joe had prepared as a draft. So they're going to be meeting, and he asked to be placed on the last February meeting, I believe it is. And then I know that Select Board Member Baker had talked to Patrick.
Yeah, the Recreation Committee hasn't met yet. They should be having a meeting soon. They meet monthly, so I think we just kind of, have missed their meeting. We just missed their meeting after our meeting when we first brought this up, and they haven't met again yet, but they're due too soon, so.
So I did have Joe's template, but Joe then instructed me not to share it because he had not yet had an opportunity to meet with his committee. And again, we stressed that he didn't have to fill out the template. We were very clear that we just needed some feedback. But to honor his wishes, I just put it under old business just to make you all aware that we're still working on it. And hopefully by your next meeting in February or first meeting in March, you will have that.
Awesome.
Under old business, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We said that we were going to continue to look over our select board policies. And does the social media policy, is that considered our policy, or is that a town policy? What is that? Is that ours?
I think you have a,
We have a social media policy?
so let me, I have it right in front of me in my folder. But for your policies, Um, I did have it right in front of me. You have your own separate policy, being the select board, and then we have,
So we have our own social media policy, separate from the, I believe there's a town employee policy, but I just wasn't sure who's covered. And I can certainly look it up, because that was something that I either, what's today? Today's the 2nd. So I won't be here for the next agenda, so maybe the one beyond that, if possible, we could take a look at our social media policy again, just to make sure it's up to what we want and what works.
so you do have,
I have a code of conduct, I know that.
Yeah, that's the only place I see social media.
Oh.
so there's the code of conduct that mentions the use of social media in one's capacity, and
Oh.
then that's it.
But don't we also have, as the town, in the town things, social media?
We do have that
Okay.
for, and that would be applicable to special employees, which would technically be
Us,
members.
yeah. So maybe we can kind of make sure everything's in agreement and see what else might be out there.
Yes, so we do have a social media policy. And I can send that over to the board, and then if the chairman agrees, I can add it to the agenda.
The one
Well-
after the next.
After, I won't be here for the next.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. So the
Be in
March meeting.
If you
Vegas.
If you expect me to remember,
I'm
give
at,
me a reminder.
I'll make a note right now.
I'll send you a text right now. Remember,
Now? Send it to me in a week, 2 weeks.
between the two of us, if either one of us can remember.
So it'll be March 2nd.
So, yeah, the next meeting's the 17th, we said?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yep.
social media
Not a
policy.
leap year, is it? No,
It's not a leap year now.
okay.
All right, reminder,
Good. You all set?
right? The second social media policy?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Thanks.
So now we're up at the town administrator update.
Poor Rebecca.
I tried to keep it brief because I know how much you enjoy my long-winded presentations. So just to let you know, we have signed another agreement with the YMCA to host the summer recreation camp at the Bagnell Elementary School. The program will run from June 23rd through August 15th. For more information, you can visit our website, or you can contact the YMCA directly. We have started the interview process for the Police Department Administrative Clerk position. We had over 30 applications. It was
Nice.
quite impressive with the amount of applications that we received. We narrowed it down to 10 candidates, and we have started that interview process again today. So we are hopeful that we can make an appointment for the position by the end of the month. And obviously, the chief has been a trooper, just trying to make everything work from an administrative standpoint since we've transitioned over to the North Shore Regional 911 in December. So there has been some dispatch staff that has come back to help cover the station during crucial hours where people are stopping in so that the officers can be out and patrol and do what they need to do. For fiscal year 27 budget update, as you have probably seen, the governor has released her budget on Wednesday. Unfortunately, it's not a great budget. We're only talking about a 2.5% increase in unrestricted government aid, as we've talked about in the past, and the Massachusetts Municipal Association report. This continues the trend of underfunding the unrestricted government aid, which is something that towns are very reliant on. So I think that when you read the report, it said approximately 356 million would need to be added in addition to that fund, and the governor's proposal is short and only funds it by $33 million. Chapter 70 aid, as another thing that came in lower than we had hoped for. They are looking to propose a $75 per pupil minimum aid increase. If you remember, last year, they had funded $150 per pupil. That was very helpful to the school's budget. It did come in after the fact. I remember talking to the superintendent and the business manager, so they had adjusted their budget for the lower amount originally for fiscal year '26. So when it came in higher, they were, again, pleasantly surprised, but a little defeated because they had already made the adjustments to their budget to accommodate for a lower amount. That being said, if they go back down, obviously the school is going to be more reliant on its assessment to the community. So we will see what that impact is. Hopefully, I believe, again, they'll be coming out with that tomorrow. But overall, again, like we said, last fiscal year, we had 906,000 unrestricted general aid. We now have 928 with the 1,000 for the governor's proposal. We did receive a notable increase of 32% for our exemptions for veterans and blind persons and surviving spouses. But again, that just goes to offset those costs for those individuals. And then we also saw a 1% increase for the state-owned land funding. So that's the pilots on payment in lieu of taxes, so the valuation of the land that's currently under ownership of the state. And then the public library was about a 2.4% increase as well. So again, this whole process involves first coming out through the governor, then going through the House, then going through the Senate, then going to conference, and then going back to the governor for signature. So it is a long process, but now having the governor's number does allow us to put those estimates into play. So we can then just start our process based on that and hope that it doesn't go any lower. Hope that it will go much higher, but it won't go any lower. So now that we had that, we're just waiting for final numbers from the GIC. An initial conversation, it looks like they're at a 10-11% increase from last fiscal year. That's better than the 12% placeholder that we had in place, so hopefully that does come down slightly. I do know that in terms of some of the conversations that were happening, they had said that there was a lot of talk about and I think when Senator Tar here was talking about it, the GLP-1 medication was a big driving force in some of the cost increase. So they had talked about eliminating that, and then they also had talked about increasing the family and individual deductible slightly. And by doing so, if the commission as a whole agreed, would actually only result in about a 6 or 7% increase from last fiscal year for insurance, which would be amazing. So we are waiting to still hear from them, but otherwise we have a lot of our figures. So we are now, that the capital plan is done, we'll be looking into those details and we'll hopefully have updates for you. And then another benefit to joining the North Shore Regional 911 is that we currently use Code Red, and I know some of you are familiar with that, so if there was a missing person, a Code Red alert would go out. We also use it a lot with the water and sewer department, so if they're doing flushing or if there's anything that they're working with a water main or something of that, they can send out like a call within 300 feet of the actual impacted area, and it'll alert residents that they won't have water or something's going on. Well, the North Shore Regional uses emergency notification systems, which is another notification software, and we are now eligible to use that at no cost to the town. So it will cut down the $6,000 bill that we have for Code Red and make it non-existent. And we will also be able to have our water and sewer department jump on board, as well as our municipal light department. So all of those individuals will be able to utilize the platform just like they are for Code Red at no cost to them. The best part about it is that for now, a lot of our lists that are associated with Code Red are outdated. People move. They didn't recognize that they could subscribe, or it was confusing. This system allows you to better identify what you want to follow. Do you want to just follow news for the town in general? Do you only want public safety updates? And you can elect for all of that, and you can go back in and you can pick and choose. So we've had a lot of issues in the past, like even Kathy will tell you, when people, I want to know when my trash is not being picked up. And if we use Code Red, there's other people who are saying, I picked up the phone, I thought there was an emergency, I thought I had to evacuate, you shouldn't be using this system. So we were always getting this mixed feedback, but with this system and building out our list all over again, we can be very clear. you sign up for what it is that you want to be notified for, and you have an opportunity to check off yes or no, or to go back on and say, no, I don't want any updates at all.
So we won't be automatically transferred, you have to go through and
Exactly.
Okay, and that's maybe a good thing, because then you can choose which notices you want. Now, will we be able to send it out if people get notified that we have a town meeting coming up?
100%. So, and that's one of the.
You made my night.
That's one of the great parts about redoing the list too, because
Yeah.
right now we don't have any separation, and
Right.
it's been through so many different managers over the years that now if we develop a solid list and solid categories, because we can assign the categories, so at the outset we can set those, it'll be a lot clearer moving forward. And it gives us an opportunity to do another public management, like a public campaign to say, hey, like, do you want to stay informed? This is how you stay informed. This is what you do. And we can give kind of like snapshots of what information that we could be releasing to them. So it could work in another way of advertising things that we have to offer.
Great.
And then you'll see this lovely photo. This is of the Manor Apartments. We had an addressing issue with an emergency response with the North Shore Regional. They had received a call, they dispatched out police and fire, and because of the numbering, it was, a crisis was diverted because essentially one of the individuals who worked for the North Shore Regional lives in that area
Okay.
and was able to redirect personnel when they heard it come over through the radio. But looking more closely at it, it just is not going to rectify itself. As you can see, you start at 20, you have 1A, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, you jump to 13, 14, 15, you have 18 E through H and 18 A through D. So it's extremely confusing. So Sam Joslin, who's also our addressing officer, has taken the authority that is invested in him through that title to work with the owner to change that. So he has started that process. The owner is obviously not very happy about it, but these are life and safety matters when you're talking about dispatching out public safety and saying, go to building 1, they go to the first building and they're told that's building 20. And then in an emergency, well, there's a big 20 on the building, but why is there a big 20? Isn't that supposed to be building 1? Like, so it's not gonna rectify itself just with putting numbers on the building.
So some of the buildings had numbers and then letters on the apartments?
So they do have a numbering system internal as well, but they were just putting up a number on the building itself to identify that that first building is actually building 20.
So what was the letters for, like 5EH and 5AD?
So that's on the building. So for those buildings, it says E through H and A through D.
And that doesn't tell you the apartment? No, it's just the building.
Exactly. I mean,
Okay.
it has the part, like, the letters are the units inside, but to have it separated out like that on the building itself is not, it should be a separate building, because it's
Separate
separated by a
building number.
firewall. It's-
Okay.
That's why they have them separated out in the addresses anyway. So they're just looking to rectify that. So it is a big change, and obviously, again, the owners are not very happy, so I just wanted to make sure that the select board was aware that this was happening.
Okay.
And then the last update I have is just to let you all know that we received our recycled dividends program grant, the RDP grant, for 2,520. It's not a lot of money. We get certain points for having a library of things, limiting our trash, having the textile recycling bins, et cetera. And Mass DEP gives us money to help educate and to allow for additional, composting efforts and things like that. So we're actually going to be utilizing those funds to help with the rollout of the new trash carts and educating individuals as to what they can throw away, and the program that we're implementing.
Great.
And then the rest of the memo, as you can see, is just the standard information. So if you have any additional questions about anything that's listed, I'm happy to answer it. But I do want to, again, call attention to the rate study presentation that will be happening on February 9th with the Water and Sewer Commission here at Town Hall. As part of your correspondence, you do have a copy of the presentation, the draft presentation. So I, again, just wanted to highlight that aspect. But if there is anything else, please let me know.
I was going to let the board member, I'm planning to go to that meeting. Are any other members? I didn't know if we had to be posted if more members are going to, we're not meeting there as a board, but, so we don't need to post. Okay. So I've gotten some feedback from residents that are concerned about the rates, and I'm looking through it. as you said, the town has to bond for this. And some of the proposals are to put most of the price increase on the water usage rate, which in a summer with a lot of rain, you won't use that much water. So I feel like as a select board, we also should have a concern about how the rate design is calculated to ensure there's a stability in the amount of money available for bond payments.
Yes, it's very important. Ed, you got any questions for Rebecca about her update?
No questions.
Awesome. Becky?
No, I mean, I'm disappointed in the budget, but I'm not surprised. I keep track of the federal funding cuts to Massachusetts, $843 million. I mean, this is no surprise, right? Because it has to flow from somewhere. But just will be challenging to figure out where to put what, right?
That it will be. You have any questions?
I do not.
And I will move on to select board time and reports. Ed, you got anything?
I don't have anything.
Kathy?
Well, Puxatawny Phil saw his shadow. 6 more weeks.
Yes, he did.
Yes. Dig in.
Becky?
No, I already thanked the highway department and everything, so, nope, I have nothing new to report, thank you.
Steve?
Nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight? Well, I would also like to thank the water department because I know that they do participate in some of the snow removal as well as salting certain areas. And I just want to recognize that their participation is one of the reasons why the highway department does such a great job. And hopefully encourage them to do a little more. And then we have correspondence, which we have from the Fisheries and Wildlife
That's Meadow.
regarding Meadow Pond,
Yeah, I thought it was easy. It's Meadow, huh?
which apparently is something that hasn't happened for a quarter of a century.
There you go.
That's what it says.
Very interesting. Department of Public Utilities, notice of filing and public hearings on a petition submitted. And then, of course, the Water and Sewer Commission draft presentation, which will be February 9th.
There is a meeting at the Haverhill High School, I think, on the national grid increase, and I think there's a Zoom meeting too. But overall, the most important thing there is, I mean, our residents are looking at increases in water rates, gas rates, electrical rates. I mean, it's tough.
It is, it's very tough.
Everything's hitting at once.
It really brings into question some of the additional fees that are attached to some of these and whether or not they actually should be there, or if we should scale back some of those fees. So, but that's another story for another day. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn at 8:33 PM.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor? We'll roll call. Ed?
Oops.
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes, please.
Jason, yes. Steve?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Groveland.
Listen, you made it. Good job.